The love of a family is life's greatest blessing. Those words adorned frames in my bedroom and bathroom. My parents' favorite quote. I'd see them each morning as I got out of bed or glanced into the bathroom mirror. It might sound cliché, but back then, I had everything a teenager could wish for. A wonderful dad and a loving mom who always made time for me. Though we didn't have much in terms of material possessions, I was content, and life was comfortable. But things took a turn when my baby brother entered the picture. He arrived just a week before my 12th birthday, and as if that wasn't enough, all the attention and affection, or so I believe, shifted toward him. On the morning of my 12th birthday, I eagerly sat up, awaiting my parents bursting into the room with balloons and presents. However, the door remained closed, and they didn't enter. I got out of bed and hurried to their room, thinking they were still asleep. To my surprise, I discovered my mother fast asleep, while my father was tending to my baby brother, soothing him to sleep. They eventually recalled that it was my birthday later that night, after I reminded them, and they apologized for not getting me anything. My dad said, "Sorry, sweetie, but we've been up all night with the baby in the bottle. We'll make it up to you, Ryan." After some additional prodding, my dad reluctantly took me to the park. I mean, what 12-year-old spends their birthday at the park? I'm not a little kid or dog. Going to the park wasn't my idea of a birthday celebration, but it was better than nothing. And at least it offered some respite from the baby's incessant crying. On the way home, my dad explained how they had struggled for years to have another child after me, but it never seemed to work out. "This baby is a miracle," he said. "I'm sorry your birthday didn't turn out as planned this year, Ryan, but things will get back to normal soon." Well, that turned out to be a false promise. A few months before my 13th birthday, our family business hit it big, and suddenly, we became wealthy. We moved to a new neighborhood filled with affluent families, and I had to switch schools. My parents became consumed by their work, coming home late after I was already asleep and leaving for the office before I woke up. They hired a nanny to care for my brother, and I could only catch a glimpse of them on weekends. What made it sting even more was that during those weekends, they seemed to spend more quality time with my brother than they did with me. My 13th birthday rolled around, and the same old story repeated itself. They forgot, citing their hectic work schedules, and promised to make it up to me. This time, though, I made a conscious decision not to remind them and demand their attention. What struck me as strange was that they never forgot my brother's birthday, which happened to be just a week before mine. The pattern persisted when I turned 14, and it gradually dawned on me that my parents no longer cared for me as they once did. My life was a constant stream of disappointment, devoid of any real joy. That's when Anthony entered my life. His father played golf with mine on Saturdays, and his mother frequently went shopping with mine, creating opportunities for our paths to cross. At first, I found Anthony annoying and thought he was a show-off. But despite my initial resistance, he persisted in trying to befriend me, and I eventually warmed up to him. We began sneaking away to my room whenever our parents were occupied, and we enjoyed each other's company. I cherished how he paid such close attention to me and always wanted to embark on goofy adventures together. On my 15th birthday, Anthony was the only one who remembered. He gave me my first birthday present in 3 long years. I was overjoyed, and I hugged him tighter and longer than I had hugged anyone in a very long time. It was in that moment that I felt like I truly mattered again, and I decided to let go of the hurt caused by my parents' neglect. Anthony genuinely cared about me, so I felt content. A year flew by, and my 16th birthday was approaching, with Anthony at the forefront of my plans. "Why don't you have a sweet 16 party?" he suggested. I hesitated, then declined, proposing instead that we invite a small group of friends over for some fun. Anthony liked the idea, and we started brainstorming my birthday celebration. A week before my birthday, my brother's birthday rolled around as usual. He was turning 4, and my parents informed me they were throwing him a party, just as they had done every year. This time, they expressed a desire for me to be present since they'd noticed my absence on his previous birthdays. When the day of the party arrived, I locked myself in my room and fell asleep. The following morning, my parents voiced their displeasure with my behavior, but I remained indifferent. It was almost a relief that they were finally experiencing the same indifference I had felt for the past 3 years. I wished they would feel compelled to ask me why I had grown distant, but they simply regarded me as a typical rebellious teenager and didn't seem to care. They were so old-fashioned. Undeterred, I carried on with my birthday plans and eagerly anticipated spending time with Anthony and my other friends. He suggested camping, as my birthday coincided with a school vacation. I liked the idea, but I also needed to obtain my parents' permission without revealing it was for my birthday. So, I resorted to a lie. During dinner, I broached the topic and fabricated a story about it being a school camp. Looking back, it was the most foolish lie ever because they immediately saw through it and confronted me. "You know we know that's not true, right?" my dad asked. I felt utterly foolish. Not only had I refused to attend my brother's birthday party, as they had requested, but now I had been caught in a lie as well. Then, out of the blue, my mom dropped the bombshell that we were going on a family vacation to the beach house they had bought on some island. I couldn't believe it. A family vacation. Why now? I immediately replied that I had no interest in going and that they should go without me. In response, my dad laid down two options. He explained that either I would join them on vacation or I would be grounded until school started again. It was clear that my camp plan was about to unravel. That night, I called Anthony, tears streaming down my face, and poured out the whole story. "Why do they ruin all my birthdays?" I lamented. After a comforting conversation, Anthony assured me he would cancel our plans with everyone we had invited. Then he suggested that he would have his dad ask mine if he could accompany us on the trip. Hearing that lifted my spirits, and I told him that I'd be overjoyed if he could join us. The great news was that Anthony got the green light, and we set off to the beach house on my dad's private jet. The beach house itself was massive, boasting a sprawling pool and rooms with breathtaking ocean views. The following day marked my birthday, and even though it wasn't going to unfold as I had initially envisioned, having Anthony there made all the difference. As my dad inquired about the school camp during dinner that night, I raised an eyebrow. Was he trying to embarrass me? Anthony looked at me, not sure how to respond. The words caught in my throat as I realized I didn't want them to know my birthday was the next day. My father continued, suggesting we play hide and seek to lighten the atmosphere in the room, recalling how much I used to enjoy the game when I was younger. Before I could utter a word, Anthony wholeheartedly endorsed the idea, leaving me momentarily puzzled by his sudden change of allegiance. He shot me a wink, though, which hinted at something I wasn't yet privy to. My mom scooped up my little brother, and everyone scattered to find hiding spots. I counted to 10 and then set out to locate them. It took me about 5 minutes to discover Anthony concealed in my bedroom, and together, we resumed our quest to uncover the others. For over 30 minutes, we combed the house, but there was no sign of my parents. Exhausted, I told Anthony I needed a break and made my way upstairs to grab my phone, intending to call my parents. However, just as I was about to dial, Anthony's voice suddenly echoed from the kitchen downstairs. I dashed back down to the kitchen, only to find it empty. My heart raced as I began to scream, "Anthony, Anthony, where are you?" Panic set in, and I frantically called my parents, but their lines had been disconnected. As I was about to return to the living room, my eyes caught a note on the kitchen counter next to Anthony's phone. It sent a chill down my spine as I read, "We have your family and your boyfriend. If you call for help, you'll never see them again. We can see you." I felt as if I were being watched, and my mind raced with questions. Who had taken my family and Anthony? What should I do now? Fear gripped me. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, jolting me. I grabbed a nearby knife and cautiously opened the door, but there was no one in sight, only a small box with a note inside. The note instructed me to go to the garage and wait for further directions, emphasizing that if I tried anything funny or left prematurely, I'd lose sight of my family and boyfriend forever. Trembling, I made my way to the garage, nearly on the verge of tears. I took a seat, and the garage door promptly closed behind me. The lights flicked on, and not far away, I noticed a whiteboard bearing a message. I approached the whiteboard, and there, it read, "You can only choose one, your family or your boyfriend." Who will it be? Ryan? The words sent a shiver down my spine. How did they know my name? Why were they making me choose? Weren't they supposed to let everyone go if I followed their instructions and didn't call for help or leave? My mind raced with questions, and I couldn't comprehend the situation. Who could do this to my family? Images of the horrifying stories I'd heard about situations like this flooded my mind, and tears welled up in my eyes. After what felt like an eternity, I glanced at my phone. It was just minutes before midnight, and I'd been in that garage for over an hour. Should I call the police? Were my family and Anthony already in danger and being tormented? My trembling fingers began dialing 911 when, out of nowhere, the garage door started to open, revealing Anthony. He clutched his side with his right hand and held the garage door remote with his left. My heart leaped with both relief and fear as I rushed to his side. "What happened? Are you hurt? I'm so scared," I blurted out in a rush. Anthony explained that he'd been injured while fighting off two captors who had held him, but he'd managed to trick them into the woods, making his escape to find me and lead me to where my family was being held before the captors returned. He assured me that he'd called 911, And the police would arrive soon. Anthony asked me to help him into the living room because he couldn't walk on his own. With his arm draped over my shoulder, I carefully guided him to the living room. As I opened the door and said, "Lights on," I was met with a chorus of voices shouting, "Happy Sweet 16, Ryan." I was almost overwhelmed with shock and relief. My entire family was seated on the couch, but that wasn't all. My friends, the ones I'd called to cancel on the night of the camp, were there too. The room was festively decorated, and a birthday cake took center stage on the table. I turned to glance at Anthony, who seemed perfectly fine. He had even smeared ketchup on his shirt to deceive me. I couldn't believe my eyes. My parents walked up to me, and I ran to embrace them. "Happy Sweet 16, Princess. We love you," they exclaimed. They explained that they had been planning this surprise from the moment I started making arrangements with Anthony. They had already invited him before I had a chance to ask because they didn't want me to run away or ruin the surprise. My parents apologized for not spending enough time with me recently and promised to do better, especially with my little brother, who had been neglected since his birth. I gave my brother a heartfelt hug, and it was the first time I had shown such affection toward him. Despite the initial scare of the kidnapping setup, my Sweet 16 couldn't have gone any better. I told my parents never to pull a prank like that on me again, but I also appreciated the effort and love that went into planning the surprise.